Okay, I'm back. It is 9 days from when I put this batch in, and here we have the first results. I gotta say, I'm not really surprised. Agates are pretty hard, so essentially what we got here, I really don't think any of it's ready to move on. Okay, but it looks like the ones that were pre-tumbled, like if you look at this one, this isn't far off. It's still got some little pits in it, stuff like that. That one won't take too long. Now some of them, if you look at this one, it's got pits all over it. They're pretty big. Agates are pretty hard. This is going to take a while to get it to where I want it to move on. So a lot of these rocks are like that. So after 9 days, I'd say I'm off to a good start, but I don't think that I'll be moving on to step 2 anytime soon with much of this. There was one rock I saw, can't find where it is now, but alright, so I knew this video was going to be really short, so I thought I'd throw something else in there. If you looked at the title, let's talk about Facebook pages a little bit. I'm going to move the camera, sit down, and we'll talk a little bit about Facebook pages. So be right back in internet time, no time at all. Okay, I'm back. So rock tumbling Facebook pages. I took a quick look before I came down, and I think I'm in at least 5. I might be in more than that. I could easily have missed one. I'm definitely in 5, so let's say 5 plus. If you're in any, you're probably in one with me. My name's the same as it is on the channel, so if you want to look and see if I'm a member, I probably am. And here's the thing, I don't post a whole lot. I'm not criticizing any of these Facebook pages. I think they're awesome. I think you definitely should join. But if you're joining them new, you need to be careful of a few things. Okay, the first thing I want to mention, don't read more into what is said to you than what is probably intended. And what I mean by that, I sometimes see these things, and if you've been in these groups for a while, what you find out is that a lot of the new people, they come in and they ask the same questions over and over and over and over again. So the people that are in the group, they kind of get tired of answering those questions, but the people asking them don't realize it's like the millionth time. They don't realize they're asking the same stuff. And a lot of times what they're asking isn't the right question because they're so new, they don't realize that they really aren't asking the right questions. And I think a couple of things compound this. One, that on the internet, when you are posting a post, there's no tone of voice, there's no facial expression. I think a lot of times people may be doing these things on their phones, and if they're like me, I hate typing on my phone, and so I will say things as short as possible just to get through it, and sometimes that may make you come across as being curt or rude. And I'll say sometimes people are just flat out rude. Okay, and in most of those groups, usually if somebody's flat out rude, they get corrected pretty quickly, and that's a good thing. So as a new member of one of these groups, and as an example of this, so I can kind of say where I'm going or where I went. Can I use sand as grit? Okay, that's, I think, a good example of you're not asking the right question. The right question would be, will it work? The answer is no. Well, yes and no. It'll work, but it'll take you about 10 years to finish the batch. I think Rob on Michigan Rocks did that already, and it had almost no effect on the rocks. And the complex answer is that the sand is not harder than the rocks that you're tumbling. So is it going to abrade? Yes, but it's not going to do like silicon carbide does, or the other stuff that we use. So that's an example. You get these new people, new to the hobby, they don't know, and they don't realize when they ask a question like that. I have probably seen the "can I use sand" question at least 25 times. Okay, and I might be a good example of this, because sometimes my answer would be, there's no rock tumbling police. You can do whatever you want. Okay, and that might come across as me being a little smart alecky or something like that, and I don't intend it that way. A lot of things, my opinion, try it and find out. And you try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, using sand in a rock tumbler is not going to hurt it. About the only time I would really say anything is if they're going to do something that's actually going to cause harm to their equipment or could be possibly dangerous for them, then yeah, I might say something. But typically, if you got a question like that, try it and find out. If you ask a question, especially if you're new to a group and new to the hobby, and somebody comes across as being smart alecky, try to keep in mind that you're not hearing their tone of voice. You're not you're not seeing their facial expression, and they probably didn't intend it that way. The vast majority, and if anybody's in one of these groups and you're thinking I'm nuts, I would say 98% of all the posts are great, and you will learn a lot from these people. That's why I'm there. I read just to see, every once in a while I'll be like, wow, that's a really good question. And then I'll start reading through all the answers to see what people are saying about it. So if you join one of these groups, or you have joined one of these groups, and you ask some questions, and you get some answers that just come across a little badly, well, first of all, if they're flat out rude, just ignore them. And usually the moderators will take care of that pretty quickly. But if you just feel like they were, if you just didn't like the tone of the answer, remember, you're not really hearing the tone of the answer. You're just reading words. And in most cases, I don't think they mean it that way. Trying to think off the top of my head if there's some more questions. Another big one in the vibratory group, can I do step 1 in the vibratory? And that's one where I have answered that a couple of times, and I had someone argue with me once, but I loved it when it kind of went a little further. Okay, no, you shouldn't do step 1, and the key is that the grit's too intense, and it could ruin your barrel, which a new barrel on my Lotto I think would cost me $80 right now. I don't want to spend $80 because I ruined my barrel doing something I shouldn't have done. Okay, well, I did have one person one time tell me they do step 1 all the time in the vibratory, and I went, well, I mean, that's on you. I personally, I'm not going to do it, and that was pretty much about it. And then that person responded again that their step 1 they use 120/220 grit. Oh, okay, well, that changes things a little bit. I use straight 60 in mine. That would be a lot more abrasive on the inside of my barrel. And I didn't know all the situation. If I typically were tumbling rocks that were fairly smooth to start with, like I don't think this would work at all with what I'm tumbling right now, this stuff with all those pits in it. But if you're using stuff that's pretty smooth to start with, pretty rounded to start with, and you use 120/220 and you ran it, say, like I usually do 3-day cycles in my Lotto. If I did a 3-day cycle and then did another one, I probably could technically do a step 1 that way. So they, and when they said all that, I was like, oh, okay. But in my mind, when it's the question wasn't, or actually the response wasn't fully brought out at the beginning. Taking those rocks, putting them in my Lotto, and then putting straight 60 grit in it and running it, from everything I've read, would probably ruin my barrel fairly quickly. And to me, that's not worth it. The vibratory does work much more quickly. Like I said, I'm probably looking at a long time to get this batch done. Those are hard rocks. There's some pretty deep pitting in them. And this is one of those times where I'm really regretting that I don't have a good cabbing setup or something like that, where I could just take them and smooth them out and then throw them in and do the fine tuning with the rotary barrel. Another question, why aren't my rocks smooth? And it's another example of you're just not asking the right question technically. Pretty much nobody can answer that. Because there's too many different factors that you haven't given us all the information. So basically, if you're going to ask a question like that, you should say, okay, what kind of rocks? What are you tumbling them in? how long did you tumble? What kind of grit did you put in? Where did you get that grit? These are all things that can factor in on this. You know, there could be a lot of different reasons. Another one is some rocks just won't get shiny. It's that simple. Some rocks won't. If they're too soft, you're not going to get a shine on them. So when people don't answer your question or they hit you with questions back, in most cases, I don't really feel like they're trying to be rude. They're just, you just haven't told them everything they need to know to be able to try and answer your question. Okay, so I guess the moral to the story, if you're new to the hobby and you're watching my videos, I hope you've learned some stuff. If you have questions, I absolutely would suggest joining some of these Facebook pages, and just, you know, when you get responses, don't try not to be offended by anything, especially like if you don't get an answer right away and you get a bunch of questions. It's probably that you just didn't tell them everything they needed to know to be able to try and answer your questions. And like I said, please don't say I'm trashing the Facebook pages or anything like that. I'd say 98% of all the responses I read on those things are positive and good information. And then that little 2%, you know, we're human beings. There's always going to be jerks. And like I said, the moderators are usually right on top of that, and they take care of it. So, you know, if you do join, good luck to you. And you know, the YouTube videos, you know, I always say if you have any questions, put them in the comments. But to be honest with you, I get very few questions. I love it when I do. And one thing I do like, my page is still small enough that if you put a comment, you put a question, I'm going to read it and I will answer it. I'll do the best I can. You know, and sometimes that might be I don't know. I think I've had a couple of times when people ask me stuff and I'm just like, I don't know. That's beyond my experience level or something like that. But if you join those pages, you know, just try to stay calm and you know, don't be frustrated if you don't get a direct answer right away. Sometimes it's just they need more information. And if somebody acts like a jerk, usually there's going to be 5 more people that are going to give you a straight answer, and it's not going to be a problem. All right, well, I'll probably see you in another week when we look at the second week with that batch of rocks, and I'll see you then.